We're going to start a new game, and we're going to go with the Type IIA, and we're going to set up for 100% mode. So we'll go ahead and select the hardcore, and expert sounds daunting, but I'm going to show you how to set up the scheduling to manage the crew, and that'll all be largely automated. And these are the various settings for 100%, and that all looks fine, so we'll go next, and we'll go with our default captain, Klaus.
Good luck on your next mission, Captain. Stay safe out there.
And it looks like the crew's starting to arrive on our little Type 2 boat, the U4. And you know, it's fun to start new careers with the lowest level sub and kind of work your way up if you like grindy things like I do. And there's Klaus coming up to the con, but I'm going to show you how to set this up so that you can make the most out of your, hopefully, you know, get the best fuel economy out of this thing. Typically, the Type 2, the biggest problem that people have with it is they select a mission. So let's go to a mission, and people generally feel like they don't have enough fuel to do it, and I'm going to show you how to set it up. But let's go. Let's pick an order.
Your eyes only.
And for first patrol, usually what you'll see is, you know, you're obviously going to have 3 choices, but for the first patrol, the difficulty level is going to be low. So really, there's not really going to be much of a difference between these 3. It's just going to be a matter of the geography on the map, and as you can see, there's not much difference here. We'll take the one furthest to the north because I want to show you how to set up your crew to get the best fuel economy, and so we'll go ahead and take that one. And let's go first for supplies.
You need, officer.
And
take a look.
We'll take a look. And I usually like to start out with we'll do 5 replacement parts and 5 med kits. Chances are for the first patrol it's fairly simple. We're not going to need, we're probably not even going to use those. And then on the foodstuffs, this is probably okay. I like to usually have a little bit of a variety, so maybe a little bit of vegetables. So we'll bring over 20 of those, and sometimes there's fruit. Looks like we have some smoked sausage, so we'll take some of that. And I usually like to have in cans either bread or fish or beef or whatever. We're going to do I'll do 10 to get us up to 60. That'll give me enough to hand it off to lifeboats to get the reputation bonuses for being a nice captain after we sink ships. And then we'll go over to items. Here to start, dynamite is a must. We only have 5 torpedoes, so if we can stop a ship and stink it without having to use a torpedo, that'll be a little bonus tonnage. So anytime I see dynamite, I often have 2 sticks of dynamite. There was 1 available, so we'll go with that. Eventually we'll need enough credits to be able to buy the diving suit for certain missions. The rifle, you can use that to maybe, you know, for your boarding. I guess it has a certain intimidation buff associated with it, where maybe you get a captain to admit that he's doing something with the British, and you can sink the ship. But usually I don't find that there's, you know, it's just taking up space, so I don't always use it. Probably better off to have extra breathing apparatus, but again, for the first mission, this should be fine. And let's go to torpedoes. It looks like 1 is in the process of moving. And this happens sometimes. It's like the crew comes in, there's 2 in storage, and they start to move 1 of them over to the tubes. So we're going to have to wait for that one to be completely done, because we would definitely want to leave and have 5. But to start, let's go ahead and we'll drop these T1s, and they cost a little bit. I like to watch the steam trails, so the T1s are fun. And we'll go over to storage, and you know, we could drag this T2 out. Let's see if I can do that, and put in a T1, and now I've got should have all steam torpedoes. But this one is in the process of moving, so it's taking up 2 slots. It's in our storage, and we see it in the tube. So eventually that's going to be vacated, and then we'll move and put another one in there. Sometimes you start a game and these are either both empty, or I think sometimes these are full and you don't see one moving, but if it does, it just takes you a minute to get everything over here. You're not going to find that during your regular missions that this moving is going to happen. It's just, you know, a peculiarity for the first mission. Just giving it a quick look. We can go, you know, this is storage, this is flak. That should be fine for flak purposes. Torpedoes, fuel is full, ammunition, food. Yeah, I think otherwise we're in pretty good shape. That's a decent variety. Yeah, maybe some fish. Do 20 fish. And that should work. So we'll goodbye there. So we've got a mission. We should have, well, I guess we're going to have to accelerate time. Usually there's a thing up at the top where it would tell you, there'd be a little button up here to say that it'll take some time for this stuff to load. But right now we've got Zeech moving a torpedo, so we'll go ahead and set the crew up and set up our UI while Zeech is playing with torpedoes. The telegraph, and you know, you got your depth meter and rudder and the gyro compass. I don't mind having the telegraph up here all the time, but these other dials I like to see. I like them always to be displayed. So what I like to do is I'll take the gyro compass, and if you click around the edge, you can kind of click and drag, and I like to put it over here. It would be nice if these buttons, if they had an option where you could move it from this side to that side, it would make it look a little bit better. And I don't put it over, I don't put this stuff, you know, I don't stack the gyro compass and stuff over here, because this is a spot where there's messages that are being displayed. So I don't like to take up this space. You'll see messages, you'll see icons related to ships and contacts, messages about mail, and just little notes, and different things happening over here as well. So this area, it really only has like this one spot that I think is open, so this space over here is pretty free. So we'll go ahead and take our depth meter and drag it as well, and we'll put it there. And our rudder control, we'll put that down here. So now our UI is set up, and that's pretty much how I'm going to run things. Now let's go and take a look at the crew and how we're going to set up our officers and the crew. And if you click on that button right there, I'm just single clicking there, left clicking. You can see that you get to the crew menu and it's got different choices. We've got a crew list here. It shows our officers up at the top and then our sailors. And we have the different tasks for both officers and then tasks for sailors. It has scheduling, and we'll talk about that. It's got squads and specializations. You'll earn points, and then you can assign things like diving, silent rank, discipline to various officers. Or I'm sorry, various sailors. I'd be careful about assigning this too quick. Eventually, with certain stress, you'll see that your sailors will have hidden traits that'll become evident. What you want to do is try to give specializations to sailors with like the seawolf trait. If you give a specialization like diving to someone who has health problems or panic or something like tends to panic in bad situations, you don't want them having your your specializations. Most likely they're going to be ejected from the crew after a while, so don't waste it on anything. Stick to the Sea Wolves. And if you don't have anybody yet that has a trait, just be happy to rack these up. It's not going to make that big of a difference. And then you've got your boat dive schedule, and I'll show you that one as well, and how we'll take advantage of that. But let's start off with the tasks. And I always first go to the sailors and the crew, and the first thing I do is the observation scope. There's nothing more irritating in this game than to be playing and you think that your periscope is down and then one of your sailors is jumping on it and looking at it. So we're going to definitely remove that. I never want a sailor on the obscope. So to get rid of it, you just hit the 0 on your numpad and wipe that out. The rest of the settings as they are by default are probably fine, and we can leave those alone. We'll go over to the officers, and this one is where it gets a little bit interesting. We have 2 executive officers, we've got a couple engineers, and then we've got our radio officer. I don't think I can move that up. We're going to set the officers up on 6-hour shifts on the schedule side, and we're basically going to we want the best fuel economy for this Type 2. So we're going to need our officers. I want 2 watch officers. I don't really need a boatswain. And then we're going to want 2 chief engineers. And the reason being, I'm going to set them up on 6-hour shifts, and when I'm either going to have one or the other on engines and one or the other on navigation. And I don't really need anybody dedicated to torpedoes. I can, whichever engineer is off duty, I can assign them to prep torpedoes or load torpedoes. So I don't really need a mechanic kind of wasting wasted activity. So we got 2 chief engineers, and you can see they're both set up that way. And by default, sleep is the top priority. So if they get absolutely overrun, that they'll go to bed. You want that because they can work themselves almost nearly to death, and then you end up having to send your paramedic over to service them. But leaving that on 11 is fine. My radio officer I'm going to adjust because I really want, if somebody's injured, I want that to be my top priority. So I'm going to enter a 9. If you notice, there's not really a way to enter a 10. If you try to put in a 1 or a 0, it's just going to default to the first. But it's kind of strange the way they did this. If you wanted to make that a 10, you could do 9 and then mouse over it and scroll your mouse wheel up or down. It's not even working. But I don't really have any reason to make an 11 or a 10 or whatever. But usually it's scrolling the mouse wheel. I don't know why it's not working now, but that's the way you would get that to go higher. But 9 is fine. So 9 will be the first priority. The second priority is going to be your listen for contacts on the hydrophone. So we're going to make that an 8. And third priority is going to be radio. So he's going to check radio. So that is set up there. Our engineers are fine with first priority as repair. If there's any leaks or anything, we want them to jump off the engines and take care of that. And then second priority engine. So that's fine with that. Watch officer. Let's go over. First off, I don't really need I don't need a boatswain, so we're going to go to watch officer, and that takes him off of cooking duty. And we'll see we have these options. The ones that I am interested in, watch is fine, but it's something that I can manage manually, so I usually set those to 0. Usually my top priority is navigation, so I'm going to put 9s there, and we can put this calm down, we can put that at an 8. That might be helpful if I'm on alarm, and don't have them assigned to navigation. Then they would default to this calm down and be kind of keeping the crew under control. So that's a good setup for my officers. So I'm going to have 2 watch officers running navigation. I'm going to have 2 engineers managing the engines, and then I'm going to have my radio officer. Now let's go over to the schedule. The idea here is 6-hour shifts for engineers and the watch officers. We're going to do something slightly different with the radio officer because we only have one, and we're going to sync the radio officer up to the boat dive schedule, and I'll go over that in a minute. But let's start with Zeech. He's going to be the first engineer, so we're going to put him on 6 hours on and then 6 hours off. 6 on and 6 off. And then we'll go to our second engineer, and he's going to be second shift. So we'll put, whoops, we need to make that red. So he's off for 6, then on, and then off and on. And then here's our XO Rieger. We'll put him, oops, I'm hitting the wrong. There we go. On, off. And then our captain. There. So we've got 6-hour shifts for engineers. So we got a first and a second, and then for the watch officers, a first and a second. And now, what to do about Harold von Dresky? Well, we're going to put him on 3-hour. I'm going to try it. You could leave it as gray if you wanted to try it. I don't know if that ends up meaning that he's playing cards or something when he should be resting. I'm going to go ahead and force him to rest, but you can experiment with the gray or the red. But we're going to set it up like that. Now, let's go over, while I've got Dresky's up on his 3-hour shifts, let's go over to the boat schedule and look at this dive schedule. So in the game, you're allowed to run a schedule where while you're doing accel time, your boat's either surfaced or dive. And when the boat is surfaced, obviously you need to be checking the radio, but when the boat is dive, you want to make sure that it's syncing up with when your radio officer is going to be on duty. And we know that we set him, von Dresky, we set him up so that he's on duty for 3 and then off duty, and then he's on duty and then off duty, and on, whoops, and then off and then on. But I don't necessarily want the boat diving every 3 hours for that long. I also want to have some surface time while Dresky's on. So I'm going to make it, let's set up so that it's maybe the boat's down 2 hours and it's up 1. Down 2, up 1, up 1, up 1. So now what's going to happen is, and let's go back and look at Dresky. And so when he's on duty, and remember his tasks are listed here, his priority is first to hydrophone, then to radio. So when he comes on duty, it's going to be, the boat would be submerged, so he would be on hydrophone. And then when the boat goes to surface, he would also be on duty for that 1 hour, and he'd be able to check mail and any messages from BDU. So this, just make sure you don't have the boat out of sync with your with what you've got set up for the schedule for your radio officer. And the other piece of this now are squads, and we've got a morning, evening, and night shift, and we've got 8 sailors assigned to each, and that by default that is fine, and we don't really need to mess with it. We could go in and assign specific sailors if we wanted to, but I like the nondescript, and it works well. For each one of the officers, for the best fuel economy, for a 50% fuel buff, you need to have an officer assigned to navigation with 2 sailors, and you need to have an officer assigned to engines with 2 sailors. So for our engineers, we're just going to add 2 nondescript sailors, whoever's available, and same thing for Lemkuehler and Rieger and Groff. And what you're going to see, And that should take care of all of our assignments. So we're going to hit exit. And as we get ready to depart here, you're going to see it's going to start out with we've got Zeech on duty, and he's got his 2 officers assigned. It actually has Rhaegar. He's showing off duty or idle for the moment. And if you click on each one of these, you can see down here their assignments. In particular, what's interesting are this direct order switch. Notice that for this time of the day, Rhaegar, his anchor is black, so it means he's off duty, but it's got him assigned 2 sailors, and they're grayed out. If I click on Graf, he's supposed to be on duty, and that's why his anchor is gold. And if you click on each one, you can kind of see who's available for being on duty and off duty. But for some reason, to start off, I don't know why Rhaegar is showing that way, but it's not going to matter much. It'll default and correct itself once we're out of the harbor. If you wanted to, you could remove these sailors by left-clicking on them. You could come over here to Graf. If you hold down the tab key, it'll take you to this assignment screen and order screen, and you're going to be using this tab key a lot. You can put him on navigate and give him
I could use some help over here.
2 sailors, and that would be the correct starting orientation. And if you look over here over on our crew, you can see how it says 4 of 4. It just means that for the schedule that we've assigned, we have 4 sailors available that can be assigned to officers. And right now we have 4 of 4 assigned. If I were to remove officers, now you can, or remove sailors from the officer, you can see now it says 2 of 4. But we always want, when we're doing our standard travel, we always want, on the engine we want to have 2 officers, or I'm sorry, an officer with 2 sailors assigned, and on navigation an officer with 2 sailors. And if I remove them and add them, you can see it tells you get a fuel usage minus 20%. Remove them and add them. Here it says fuel usage minus 30%. So those 2 buffs stack. That's a minus 50% fuel usage buff. That doubles your range, and it'll let you do these missions pretty easily. And we've already picked, so I think we've got our crew assigned, we've got our supplies. Let me just check and double check on it. Looks like the status, if I zoom in here and check my torpedo loadout, I think the torpedo finally migrated to where it should be, or I don't know, it looks like somehow it got moved back, but I don't want to move this one to here from here to here, because it'll just take a while, and it'll lock up both spots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to supply.
What do you need, officer?
And we'll fill in that vacant spot.
Take a look.
Make sure you leave with 5 torpedoes. So we got tubes and storage. Looks like I've got T1s. I've only got $80 left, so I don't have enough money to buy another $400 T1, so we'll have to take one of these electric T2s. But that should max us out on torpedoes, so we should be all set. So we're going to go ahead to half ahead.
Half ahead.
That will cause us to leave the dock. And we have our, looks like Graf hasn't settled into his navigation role, but he's working his way to wherever he needs to go. But I'd like him on navigation, but for the first, just as we leave the port, it's not a big deal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set, and as you can see, by default, it's already set up where it's got you on a navigation path that'll take you out. That's relatively safe, and you're not going to have to worry about micromanaging that. But if I right-click, it's going to give me the course out to the patrol zone. And one thing that I didn't know right away was exactly, well, can you do legs? Well, yeah, you could right click here, for instance, and then hold down shift and you can see it'll let you
Set a course
click
for
legs
coordinates.
like that if you want to, but obviously I just want to go as efficiently as possible, so we're going to go there. I'm going to use time acceleration now, and I'm going to watch right here for an option where it's going to say leave port, and that's going to, there we go. That'll get me out and a little bit out into the ocean. You can see I didn't get too far. I'm a little bit south of Helgoland. But it should cause our crew to settle into their...
Schnitzel and beer waiting for us when we return to port.
Okay, great. Schnitzel and beer. It should set our crew into their tasks. It looks like I have... I've got Rieger now starting up on navigation, but you notice he doesn't have sailors assigned because they're over here. So I'm gonna left click in there to get rid of them, and click there to add them. But the idea here is you always want these two buffs to get you your 50% fuel use, and that'll get us out. You know, my goal is to get out here into the patrol area with like 75% fuel left, and I'm almost always doing these long legs. I'm almost always doing it at half speed, forward 3, half ahead. You could do slower if you wanted to, but half ahead is fine, and that gets me out here with 75% fuel. And you know, when I'm running my missions, I'm running it like full flank to intercept, and I have no trouble with fuel economy on these, but it's mostly because I've got this buff set up. Other people that are running Type 2s, they don't necessarily know about how to set it up and how to set your crew scheduling up, and they end up running out of fuel. And you know, I can see why they would run it at very low speeds to conserve fuel, but you don't have to if you've got it set up. But we're gonna use accel time, so I'll put it on 1800. And what you're gonna see is these are automatically flip-flopping back and forth. So you can see my two officers for navigation and engines. And as they're flip-flopping back and forth according to their 6-hour schedules, you can see that they're picking up sailors. So that's all happening automatically, and I don't have to micromanage it and you know, be down here moving sailors back and forth. It's all happening with accel time. So for these boring stretches of the game where you're waiting to go far, you can pretty easily accel time through it. Now we're going to get some messages here from... Yep, there we are. So there's 2 or 3 messages on your first mission about England and France and war status and so forth. So we're just gonna keep moving through those. But one thing that is interesting is, and that I like to set up, is whenever I get these minor notifications, I like it to take me out of accel time, and that's particularly helpful when I'm using the hydrophone and I get a hydro contact. If I'm on accel time and I get a hydro contact, which is what I'm looking for, I want it to drop out of accel time. So make sure you have that in your settings. And if we go to our settings, I don't think this is set by default, but if you look in gameplay and you use, well, I guess it's right on the first screen, there's this stop TC after receiving a minor message, so stop time compression. I like to have that checked. You might prefer to leave it off, but I think by default it's off, so make sure that's on, unless you specifically don't want it on. I think it's a good default, because if I find a hydro contact, I want it to be out of time compression, then I want to focus on intercepting the contact without too much time lapsing. So we're going to go to back to 1800, and we'll wait for the next message. Maybe we'll go to 15,000. Yeah, there it is.
We're at war with Britain.
At war, yes, confirm. And we'll go back. But you can see it's easy when you've got the scheduling set up this way.
Control area reached. Captain, word from command. France is at war. Defensive actions only. And
Okay.
radar confirms all British ships are targets.
Great, British ships are targets. So now we've got a message that we can send, patrol sector reached, and we'll go ahead and click on that. I'd be careful about clicking on those if you had warships around you, as far as giving away your position, but right now I don't have anyone near me. I'm going to right click here to put me in the center of this grid, and I'm going to go ahead and let Dresky send that message, because any message he sends, it's going to give, if I click on him, we'll go into his settings, it's going to add to his experience.
Report sent.
And there it says he got 5 XP. If I go to his settings over here and look at his skills, the first one I'm going to be interested in is getting sensitive hearing for him, and you can see his XP level. When he goes up to level 2, I'll be able to pick one, and right now he picked up 5. We're trying to get up to 200, and anyway, and you can do this right in the middle of a mission. You don't have to be done with the mission. So I would watch, if these guys are getting ready to level up, you'll see a little arrow appear in here, and you just click into them like that and choose the character screen to get their details. I'm going to go, once I go to this center point, I'm going to hold down shift and right click, and this is kind of the path that I'm thinking of following for the first patrol. But here I am, I made it to the patrol. My fuel, I'm at 76% fuel. I was hoping for 75, so I'm in good shape. I'm going to continue at half a head, and at this point, since now I'm looking for contacts, I'm going to go into my dive schedule, and the dive schedule, the way you do that is over here right now it's just surface the ship, but this one is dive schedule, and if you click on it, depending on what time of the day it is, and it looks like we're in the time when the ship should be submerged, so now it's going to follow the dive schedule that I laid out back here, so it's following this dive schedule. And I'm going to accelerate time, and we can watch. You can see there the ship is underwater now, and Dresky was on, and you can see the hydrophone that was being checked. Oh, I got another message. Let's see what that is. Yeah, hostilities with France. We'll confirm that. And it looks like I'm going to go back to accel time, and there, Dresky already found a contact. Anyway, I think that's probably a good spot to stop. It gives you an idea of how to set up your sub, how to set up your crew, and get the best out of fuel usage. If you're interested in seeing what happens when we get a contact, stay tuned, and I'll show you the next thing. I think some other interesting things that a lot of people don't know is how to set up intercepts, navigational intercepts, and maybe doing a little bit of vector math with our drawing tools, and also operating the TDC, and I absolutely demand always being able to put in my own firing solutions. So I'll show you how all that works as well. But hope you enjoyed the video and hope this was helpful. Thanks. Bye.